I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: is rational public debate now dead? Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because over the past week or so, we have seen one of the most hysterical incidents, I think, in the public square that we've seen in a long time, and that is the, I don't want to call it a discussion or a debate because I think it's devolved into something else altogether. Whatever it is we want to call it, the emotionalism that's been going on over the question of American border control policies. What should be happening, what shouldn't be happening, who's at fault, what is actually happening, is it humane, is it not humane, all of these big important questions that it seems have just fallen into this big black hysterical emotional black hole, and we haven't really discussed these issues in a way that is good and rational and can help us to begin to progress in a positive way on this issue. You see, I'm someone who, I will admit, I didn't know a lot about these policies, say 3 or 4 weeks ago, but here I am after more than a week of all sorts of outcry and people on all sides saying different things, and I still feel after more than a week of that and lots of the stuff and social media feeds and the media all over the place, I still feel that I'm pretty much none the wiser than what I was, say 3 or 4 weeks ago when I didn't know anything about this issue. I still feel that we haven't really put a lot of hard facts on the table. I still feel that we haven't had a good discussion about what are the solutions that we can have here. I still feel that we're missing sort of even a basic understanding of what the moral issues are that are at play here and how certain things should or shouldn't be balanced. To me, there's just been hysteria, wall-to-wall hysteria and emotionalism, and this is not a good thing. Now, before I go any further, let me start out by pointing something really important. Number one, and I feel it's important to point these things out because often today what happens is that when you have a discussion about big important issues, it seems that false dichotomy is now sort of the king of the day, and so if you don't agree with someone, they automatically accuse you of being in the most extreme opposing camp possible. It's like we've forgotten that not all opposing ideas, that not everyone who holds different views to your own is some dangerous evil extremist. It is possible for people to disagree with you and to have differing views that aren't dangerous and extreme. They just disagree with you. But unfortunately, we've sort of fallen into this trap of false dichotomy. And the other thing that we do is we don't really do nuance well anymore at all. And so when someone disagrees with us, we automatically start assuming what their positions are, and we start assuming lots and lots of straw man goes on. We start creating these scenarios in our head about who they are and what they do and don't support, and then we try and use those as leverage to try and win and carry support for our side of an argument. But here's the important points I want to make to get started with, to sort of clear up any of those misconceptions. Number one is, I am not a Trump supporter. I wouldn't have voted for Hillary if I was an American, but that doesn't also mean that I think that everything that Trump does is awesome and that Trump is not worthy of criticism. There are things, I think plenty of things about Trump and his administration that are worthy of criticism, right? So that's point number one, because automatically you're accused of being a Trump supporter or a blind Trump supporter if you happen to disagree with someone who's on the other side of, say, this issue we're discussing today. And number two is this: I think, and I firmly believe this, that it is inhumane and wrong to deliberately separate children from their parents unless there is actually a good cause to do that. And a good cause would be that if you leave the child with their parents in the current scenario, there is a danger to the well-being of that child. That's the reason why you could actually do that and why it would be legitimate to perhaps separate parents and children. But other than that, unless there is that good cause, it is inhumane to separate parents from children. Now, I feel like I have to point this out because straight away, if you say what I'm going to say in this video or what I'm discussing here, often you're accused, as I said, of being some rabid pro-Trump conservative who is incapable of thinking through issues properly, or you are accused of being inhumane and you want to separate families at the border and you're a fascist and you want to do evil things and you're just like the Nazis and you've got this awful idea about immigration and you're not loving towards other people, etc., 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 when none of that is true at all. You see, I think it's important that we have serious and robust public discourse and discussions about important issues. But in order to have that serious and robust public discussion about serious and important issues like this, and this is a big issue, what should our border control policy be? What is humane? What is the morally right thing to do? These are big questions that deserve answers. But in order to get to the bottom of those questions and to get to the right answers, you've actually got to have a rational public discourse. And that means that emotionalism and hysteria have got to take a back seat. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't be impacted emotionally by an issue, but if emotionalism remains in the driver's seat of the public discussion, you are likely to end up in a very dangerous or problematic place. You don't end up with a rational outcome if you start with irrationality. If you remain irrational all through a discussion, a discourse, a contemplation of an issue, you are not going to end up in a rational place. You're not going to end up with a good and rational outcome. What you need to do at some point is you need to actually turn off the irrationality and become more rational in your engagement about these issues. And by doing that, that's when you allow the space for a good outcome to actually come to the fore and for proper solutions. So in order for that to happen, we need facts. We need people proposing solutions. And I feel that both of those things have been sacrificed over the last week or so in the midst of all the hysteria that's going on. Now, this hysteria is really not a good thing. And what it suggests is, firstly, that our ability to have rational dialogue in the public square is either dying at a very fast rate or it is dead. This isn't just about private citizens who feel very emotional about this issue. This is about our media and our politicians. Things are really getting hysterical over this issue. And the problem is that seeds the ground for totalitarianism. When you create an hysterical mob and an hysterical outcry about something, this is when you get people who start to become desperate and think that you've got to take any solution possible in order to fix the problem. And so usually people who are quite nefarious will take advantage of these types of situations, and they'll say to you, hey, you're right, we should be hysterical about this issue, and you know what else we should do? We should start a civil war over this. We should actually go to war. Or they say things like, you know, you're right to be hysterical about this issue. We should actually vote for this particular strongman over here. Now, this strongman here, he's going to fix that problem. He's going to deal to the inhumanity that's going on at the border. And I tell you what, there's other policies as well, but you don't need to worry about those. Don't look too closely at those other policies that are going to come with them, because this leader here is going to fix this problem that you're really hysterical about. You see, this is the danger. At the very moment where people are accusing one side of this sort of fascism, this dangerous sort of ideological imposition and destruction of freedom, and this dehumanization and this action that is immoral and anti-human and which is Nazi-esque. You know, everyone's become a Nazi again. At the very moment you've got one side accusing the other side of being like that, that side, by continuing to propagate this sort of hysterical response and a hysterical sort of space in the public square around this issue, they're actually seeding the ground for the very thing that they're claiming to be against. They are creating a fertile breeding ground for totalitarianism, because totalitarianism really thrives and loves to take advantage of people or a public who are in a hysterical sort of mob mentality about an issue. You are very vulnerable as a society in that place. Like I said, you don't end up with good rational outcomes if you start and then carry on down an irrational path. That doesn't mean that it's wrong to be emotionally impacted by an issue. Of course, we would be anti-human if we weren't emotionally impacted by the serious allegations that are being made here. But at the same time, that emotion must at some point be parked so that we don't fall into emotionalism, so that we don't fall into hysteria, and we can actually have a serious discussion about these issues. And by the way, like I said, just because someone disagrees with you on this issue of border control policy, it doesn't make them a Nazi. There's this false dichotomy, as I said, that's arisen now, and we are failing to recognise that it's not just either or. There are other options we can discuss, but the only way we can discuss those other options is if we actually have a rational public discourse, where the public square is not tainted by this blind hysteria, and especially from our media. To me, this is one of the most astounding things of all that I've seen over the past week, is how many people in the media are just giving in and engaging in this hysteria themselves, and it's truly troubling, because there's lots of misinformation and dishonesty that's now flying around in the public square about this issue. There's very few people who I think are actually dealing with the facts, and I say that as someone who's tried to get to the bottom of these issues but still feels that my understanding is tainted by hysteria and emotionalism and dishonesty, and that's coming at me from all sides. So how do we address this issue? How do we fix this problem? Well, as I said, emotion needs to actually take the back seat. If it doesn't take the back seat, then we're in real trouble. And the future of our society, I would argue, isn't looking particularly bright if we are no longer capable of having a rational public discourse and a rational and serious public debate where we don't reduce this to two sides, two factions who are at war with each other, and the whole idea of talking about facts and correct and accurate information and proposing solutions and asking questions like what is moral and what is not moral have just gone right out the window. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. There's a link in the description below and a link on screen at the end of this video. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily Question.